Hey, I'm Tom. That's Mike back there. And I loved the Great Muta as a child because he got to spew in people's faces. And I was always jealous because I wanted to spew in people's faces myself. And that's why today's video is a brief history of the Great Muta in WCW. Now, this is just his history in WCW. I wish I were knowledgeable enough about his legendary, illustrious Japanese career to do an all-inclusive, hours-long video, but I'm just not. I'm not the guy for that. There are plenty of people who have done that on YouTube and elsewhere. Go check them out. I'm just a WCW fun boy. Now, Muta wasn't brand new to America when he came to WCW. He'd already had runs in Florida and Texas as various forms of ninja. So he knew his way around these United States when he showed up at Techwood Drive in Atlanta, March 18th, 1989, World Championship Wrestling. As America was afraid of the Japanese coming in and buying all of our businesses, Hiro Matsuda, playing the role of a Japanese businessman, puts Gary Hart in charge of his new investment. He's introduced as the son of the Great Kabuki. Because you see, they're all related. And by they, I mean face paint boys. Gary Hart's new charge is the Great Muta. They'd figure that out eventually. It took them a little bit. Either way, it's pretty instantly obvious that Muta's a bit different than your average boy. He debuts in the ring later on that show, destroying Cougar Jay, and catches the eyes and hearts of so many Americans. There's so much snap to what he's doing. He nails this incredible pescado over the top rope. Though, weirdly enough, he doesn't do the moonsault in his debut. I have to imagine he was told, hey, that thing's really cool. They won't boo you if you do it. He defeats Cougar Jay with a spinning reverse roundhouse kick out of the corner. I hope I called that right. Otherwise, Eric Bischoff's going to come to my house and shoot me. Muta's off to the races, winning various squash matches. He defeats the yassified Steve Casey at the April 1989 Clash of the Champions, and YouTube wrestling fetishists around the world cried. He was supposed to wrestle the Junkyard Dog the next month at Wrestle War in Nashville. Right before that match, the NWA and the Junkyard Dog, they bid each other adieu. They had irreconcilable differences. I can't say that word, please forgive me. The differences were JYD wanted to win that match, and everybody in the NWA didn't want him to. But Muta defeated Doug Gilbert, little brother of Eddie Gilbert, and known accuser of both pedophiles and crack smokers everywhere. And that's when we start kind of going into a feud between the Great Muta and Eddie Gilbert, hot stuff himself. But while that's getting off the ground, the NWA shows Muta a pretty strong show of faith, as they start giving him handicap squash matches, letting him beat 2 and 3 guys at the same time, normally reserved for like 400-pound giants. Muta was so cool, had such cool, unique offense that they're like, we gotta treat him like Andre the Giant, boy. But not in the way where he had to like poop in bathtubs or anything. The Eddie Gilbert Great Muta feud kind of intensifies when Great Muta spews in Missy Hyatt's face. If I were a worse person, I'd make a joke there. But poor Missy's been through the ringer, and so many men have been mean to her, so I'm not going to do that. What I will point out is that Eddie Gilbert decided to try to fight off the mist with wizard powers. You see, Eddie learned magic in Memphis, and at the Clash of the Champions in June, he tried to go after the Great Muta with that Memphis fireball. And while Jerry Lawler taught him a lot of things, he didn't teach him aim, as Eddie accidentally blasts Trent Knight in the face with fire, trying to get at Muta. That's right, fire, actual fire in the face. You think Trent Knight complained? No. He didn't even want a match with Eddie. He just forgave him, and Trent Knight just moved on. What a guy. Eddie and Muta wrestle at some house shows, but then Eddie's big buddy, Sting, gets involved. Eddie saw Sting as the next big thing in the UWF and kind of latched onto him from there, followed him back to Atlanta. Sting and Muta decide, we're going to be enemies forever. There's not enough paint for 2 faces. And so the two of them battle at the Great American Bash for the World Television title. Heck of a match. Went to a draw, as we discussed in the Great American Bash video that I did. It's somewhere up there, who knows. But you can find it, you can click on it if you haven't seen it. And you'd think, with the reputation of that Sting Great Muta feud, that there would be all these great Sting Muta matches on television, pay-per-views, archived all over the place. Spoiler alert, you're wrong. The next month in August, Eddie Gilbert gets his revenge on Muta in a no DQ match on Power Hour when Eddie pins Gary Hart. When I went back and watched this, I was impressed because the rep that Gary Hart always had was that he killed everybody's heat because he wouldn't bump. He took one hell of a body press off the top rope from Eddie Gilbert. Going back to the Great American Bash, because of that draw, the TV title was held up. It was vacant. Sting ends up defeating the Great Muta a couple of weeks later, beginning of September, on Power Hour. Only to lose it 2 days after the match aired at a house show at the Omni in a Dragon Shy match. It's a no disqualification match, but since Great Muta is Asian, they had to make it sound like a basic white girl tea drink. Muta becomes the World Television Champion, and in exchange, he has to start losing lots of matches via DQ at house shows to both Sting and babyface World Champion Ric Flair. Sting and Flair kind of become aligned in this time, leading to Halloween Havoc 1989. Ooh, it's spooky. The Thunderdome! As Muta teams with his new J-Tex Corporation buddy Terry Funk, looking real good, looking real ripped. Bruno Sammartino is a special guest referee, cause fuck you, Vince McMahon! Ah! And by Thunderdome, I mean kind of a tall cage, a little rickety. They got some vines on it. Apparently the Thunderdome came from the jungle, and it's very flammable. The cage catches on fire in one of the sharpest thinking moments in pro wrestling live television history. Muta sees the cage on fire, he leaps up to the top, and mists it to put the fire out. Sting and Flair win in the Thunderdome, and then like most corporations, when they fail, they bring in more bloated overhead. The Dragon Master and noted humanitarian Buzz Sawyer join, making the group twice as big in their mission to take out Ric Flair and Sting. Now, at this point, everybody in NWA WCW management is noticing that this crowd does not want to boo the Great Muta. He does really cool moves. He looks really cool. There's nothing about him to hate. And they're trying to convince him to go along with the babyface turn. As the story allegedly goes, Gary Hart wanted to keep Muta as his charge because he knew that with Terry Funk retiring in November, that if he didn't have Muta, he was left with the Dragon Master as his lead guy. And that is a fate that leads you to the unemployment line. Gary Hart, for what it's worth, vehemently denies this in his book, but I would also deny things that made me look like a fucking moron if I had a book. Because Muta and Gary Hart are putting up resistance to the babyface turn at Starrcade 1989. Future Shack! I have no idea why I did that thing. It felt right at the time, but I hate it. I don't hate it enough to edit it out, but I hate it. They had a 4-dude Iron Man round robin tournament in which the Great Muta lost all 3 of his matches, including to Sting in like just a couple of minutes. You see, after the Great American Bash, this was the pay-per-view rematch between Sting and Muta. It goes like 3 minutes. Other than those 2 matches, these guys do not have any other pay-per-view matches ever. Unless you count WCW re-airing the Tokyo Dome show in 1991 on a pay-per-view that like 10 people bought. So for this grand, famous, all-time feud that people talk about to this day, you'd think we'd have so much footage of it, of all these great matches. Whereas in reality, it's mostly just vibes. Like, oh, these guys look cool. They both move around well. One seems like the alternate universe of the other. It's supposed to be a great feud. But they didn't actually really do, like, singles matches that we saw, at least. Because WCW jobbed him out so bad at Starrcade, Muta puts in his notice, I'm going back to Japan. I'm going to be, like, the #1 guy there, so fuck you. And due to that, he loses the World TV title on Power Hour to Arn Anderson, a returning hero from the WWF, at the beginning of January in one of my favorite WCW TV matches ever. If you've never seen it, go check it out. It's wonderful. And then bids adieu in a JTEX Corporation versus Four Horsemen 6-man steel cage match at the Clash of the Champions Texas Shootout a couple of weeks after that. A match which real weird because the Four Horsemen turn heel like 3 segments before it starts. So the crowd doesn't like anybody in the match, except for Muta. Showing that he wasn't super bitter about the whole situation, Muta comes back for Starrcade 1990 in the Pat O'Connor Memorial Tag Team Tournament, teaming with Mr. Saito to represent the country of Japan in an oddly accurate World Cup-style tag team title tournament, where most of the teams actually had members who were from the countries they were representing, a rarity in pro wrestling at the time. Muta and Saito defeated the royal family of New Zealand, including famed Kiwi Jacko Victory in the first round. In the second round, it was a New Japan special, as Muta and Saito faced a couple of Russian amateur greats that had been training at the New Japan dojo, Viktor Zangief and Salman Hashmakov, in a very interesting match in the semifinal. But eventually, Muta and Saito, despite Muta being booked way better in this tournament than when he was a regular the previous year, fell to the Steiners in the finals, as the Steiners were declared the tag team champions of the universe. Muta comes back again June of 1991 in a #1 contenders match for the world title at the Clash of the Champions. He lost to Lex Luger in 3 minutes. But hey, it included this, which is the craziest damn bump I've ever seen in my life. What was he thinking? But the real fun is 2 days later, a house show in St. Louis. Get a load of this tag team match. On one side, you got the Great Muta and Stan Hansen. Makes sense. They're buddies from New Japan. They hang out, they eat steak together, they do karaoke. It makes sense. Their opponents, Sting, makes sense. You know, the top good guy in WCW. And PN News. There are a few things in this world that I actively hate. I dislike many things. I don't hate many things, though. One of the few things I hate is that there was not a camera in the building to provide me with footage of Stan Hansen and the Great Muta wrestling PN News. I might cry about it. Like right now, I might actually start crying. It sucks. But before I go into like a weird, deep, sad depression about PN News, please make sure to like the video. Leave a comment about anything I've said or didn't say. If you don't like the shirt I'm wearing, say something about it. Make sure to subscribe, of course, and click the little ding-dong bell above my head. That way, whenever a new video comes up, you're prepared to listen to me talk and talk and talk and talk. Muta returned for about 6 weeks the next year, May and June of 1992, mostly house shows. His one TV appearance was in the new format version of WCW Saturday Night. It was like a talk show that also had 2 out of 3 falls matches. Bit weird. Another all-time great WCW television match. Brad Armstrong, with that sweet-ass mullet, wrestled the Great Muta in a wonderful 2 out of 3 falls match with the commentary team of Jim Ross and MTV's Headbangers Ball host Ricky Rackman, years before he would talk about doing it for the Nookie on Monday Nitro. Muta beats Brad, goes home for another 6 months, and comes back for Christmas week 1992. Mostly wrestled Sting on the house shows. Again, why the fuck can't we tape these? And then Starrcade comes around. Masahiro Chono was the NWA World Champion, and Bill Watts thought it would be a real treat to bring some Japanese flavor to American soil. And so Chono versus Muta for the world title was on the docket. But also, Muta was in Battle Bowl on the same show. There were like 74 matches on this pay-per-view. Early in the show, Great Muta teams with randomly drawn partner Barry Windham to face the team of Brian Pillman, who was Barry Windham's partner later in the show, and Too Cold Scorpio. Now you're thinking, man, that match sounds awesome. It was okay, because 3 of the 4 guys had like 2 other matches later in the show, so they didn't really want to do that much. Could you imagine if those guys got like 15 minutes and didn't have to worry about not getting hurt so they could wrestle the other half of the show? Muta and Chono have a very boring match. Muta's already wrestled, and he knows he has a battle royal in the main event to win. He loses to Chono, but like I said, he wins Battle Bowl at the end. Throws out Barry Windham last to set up Super Brawl 3, Asheville, North Carolina, where the Great Muta is set to wrestle Barry Windham for the NWA World Title, as Muta defeated Chono at the Tokyo Dome on January the 4th. It wasn't quite Wrestle Kingdom, but Muta was a prince in my heart. Big BW beats the Great Muta for the World Title of the NWA's kind, and then Muta goes away again. And here starts an interesting period for the Great Muta, and by interesting, I mean not exciting at all. It was boring, it sucked. Muta's knees were really bad because you see, doing backflips where you land on your knees with your full body weight is not a good idea. He had to start seeing a doctor in Minneapolis every year to have his knees worked on so he could wrestle another year. So he would make these trips to America once a year, and to financially justify them, he would pick up bookings in WCW where he would do barely anything but collect a paycheck, get his knees worked on, and then go back and be a top guy in Japan. Spring Stampede 1994, he wrestles stunning Steve Austin for the United States title. This is Steve Austin at the height of his powers. Such a great working heel. This match should have been awesome, but again, Muta wasn't feeling it, and they didn't do a lot. Austin beats Muta to retain the belt. Muta comes back the next spring, wrestles Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff at Slamboree. Again, should probably be a pretty good match. Muta didn't want to do a damn thing. Muta needed to keep his knees fresh because they were in pain, and he needed a doctor to stick a bunch of needles in them and do magic things. They actually put Muta over Paul Orndorff, knowing he wasn't coming back for a year, in a really bad match. Like, it's torture. Muta comes back spring of 1997. Sonny Ono's having some problems. He was managing Masahiro Chono. Chono ditches him and forms NWO Japan. Sonny's like, that's no big deal. I know another Japanese person and they'll fight you. And so he brings in the Great Muta to fight Masa Chono to, I don't know, have another boring match like they did at Starrcade. But instead, oops, it's a swerve. Muta spews in yet another man's face. They make NWO Japan a big household thing in their native country and become a tag team throughout the summer of 1997 in WCW, where they feud with the Steiner brothers, kind of like a roadblock standing in the way of the Steiners getting to the Outsiders in the World Tag Team titles. Steiners end up beating them at Bash at the Beach that year on pay-per-view. And then Muta has like a pretty fun 2-week TV program with the Giant, in which the first week they have that match that I think everybody's seen clips and gifs of, where Muta spews in the Giant's big ol' face, and Giant sells the best he ever has in his entire life. And then the next week the Giant beats him because, look, ma, no spew. Otherwise, the Great Muta's American 1997 consists of him having very basic matches at Universal Studios and chewing on this rope. Muta comes back for just one match in 1998, July 20th. In between getting his knees worked on in Minnesota, he teams with Masahiro Chono to defeat Alex Wright and the Disco Inferno in 2.5 minutes on Nitro. It's nothing special. But interestingly enough, after years of the back and forth and only coming for doctor's visits, Muta decides to spend the summer of 2000 in America wrestling for WCW, an extended stay, under the regime of Vince Russo. Shockingly, not a ton of racism, which would surprise many. We do start with the whole, oh, you guys are Japanese, you must be friends thing, as he is an ally of the Young Dragons in their feud with 3 Count and Tank Abbott. But within a few weeks, he spins off into a little spat with Lucha Libre legend Vampiro. But since this is Vince Russo, something had to not make sense. Vampiro wrestles the Great Muta with the Cat as a special guest referee, I guess because they're bonded by martial arts. And Vampiro and the Great Muta are just friends now because they both attacked the Cat. As we find out that the Great Muta is down with the clowns. They ask, what is a juggalo? And I say a juggalo is someone who spews at another man's face. The Great Muta, Vampiro, and the ICP become the Dark Carnival. You know that if the Radicals didn't jump, Dean Malenko would have been the leader. He He had to rep his dad. Muta becomes Vampiro's top ally, as who knows Sting better than the Great Muta? Sting was feuding with Vampiro. The Kiss Demon gets involved. We don't really reference how weird that is. It's just a bunch of guys wearing face paint going, I'm spooky. I'm spooky. Let's have a spooky fight. And throughout the summer, there's a lot of handicap matches, a lot of three-way matches at house shows and TV where Vampiro and Muta lose to Sting. So sad. But they find time to win the World Tag Team titles at New Blood Rising in August of that year. They defeat Chronic. And here's where I call bullshit. Did Vince Russo know any Juggalos? Because if he did, he would have known that Juggalos would never fight a team named Chronic. The Juggalos would be the team named Chronic. What I'm saying is, Juggalos love marijuana. It'd be like if the ICP feuded with a team called Big Fat Titties. Vamp and Muta lose the tag team titles to Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrera the next night on Nitro. Could you imagine how dope a match between Rey Mysterio and the Great Muta would have been 5-7 years before this, when they both had working operational knees? Instead, this is the only time they ever cross paths. The rest of the month, Muta just kind of stands around all spooky and creepy in the background during promos and things. Again, loses a bunch of house show three-way matches with Vampiro against Sting. And then at Fall Brawl, Muta bids adieu to WCW, losing a three-way match to the Stinger with Vampiro. And that is the sad, trotting end to the Great Muta in World Championship Wrestling. If you dug the video, please make sure to click the like button, subscribe to the channel. I think hyping's still a thing, you can do that. Please make sure to click the little ding-dong bell up there so you get notified whenever I do more of these. Leave a comment, and we'll chat. We'll chat down there, in that box down there. We'll have a chat. Also, check out my streams every Tuesday night at 9 on Twitch and every other Sunday here on YouTube. So again, my name's Tom. That back there's Mike. And who would let me spit in their face? Please.